Hello, one and all. Anthony flipping me off before the show. Just before I press record. This is the kind of shit I have to put up with. But yes, we are the A2theK Wrestling Show. I am Carl. The guy flipping me off, as he always does, is Anthony. And we're back for another week in wrestling. And I will kick off with Monday Night Raw. And this might shock you, Anthony. What did I give it last week? A 0.5, and that was barely scraped it. It was a better show this week, and I'm going to run down the card. It might not seem like it, but bear with me.
It was better than shit.
Marginally, but still better. So we kicked off the show this week with a returning Miz. Miz returns for Miz TV with Jomo, Johnny Drip Drip, and his guests are Charlotte Flair, and then Rhea Ripley, and then Nikki Cross comes out as well. This ultimately leads to another 2-minute beat the clock match. This time Charlotte taking on Nikki Cross because she was like, "Oh, I'll beat you in that amount of time." She didn't. Therefore, Nikki Cross technically picks up the win by not being pinned
on
in 2
TV.
minutes. Exactly. So, big fan of Nikki, and I'm happy if she's on my telly. So, yeah, bit of a silly way to do it, but it's cool. It's cool. We had Randy Orton taking on Xavier Woods, and Randy Orton picked up the win by using the what does he call it? The Bro Derek or something? I don't know what his finisher is called.
Bro Derek.
But he uses Riddle's finisher, basically.
The genetic jackhammer. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. So Orton picked up the win. We had, Anthony, you might be a fan of this, finally we're getting intergender matches on WWE. We had Shayna Baszler taking on Reginald.
You know what?
Reginald won.
I need to say some things about that, but we'll probably, whether it's in your highlights or shite, I don't know, but I need to say some things about that.
Okay. Next, we had Mace and T-Bar, because they're still a thing, taking on Lucha House Party. I was so uninterested with this that I didn't actually put a winner. I'm pretty sure it was Mace and T-Bar. We had Sheamus. Right, we had Sheamus, Anthony, taking on Ricochet, with Ricochet picking up the win after a distraction from Humberto Carrillo. We then had Sheamus, Anthony, taking on Humberto Carrillo, with Humberto Carrillo picking up the win, with Ricochet causing a distraction.
Not a good night for Sheamus.
Not a good night at all for the fella. We had Naomi and Lana. Remember when Lana used to work at WWE, just a couple of days ago?
Wow, it's a throwback, isn't it?
Naomi and Lana took on Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose. Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose picked up the win, which is a good thing, because it was I think it was a number one contendership thing for some reason. So good job that Naomi and Lana didn't win, since she got sacked a few days later. We then had Cedric.
It was all planned.
We had Cedric Alexander taking on Shelton Benjamin for the third time in 3 weeks, and Cedric picked up the win this time, making it 2-1.
To be fair, who are they going to put him against?
Yeah. We could potentially talk about this, but yeah. Then we had the tag titles on the line with AJ and Omos. Yeah, they're still a thing. They're still champions, believe it or not.
AJ and Omos.
Taking on Jackson Riker and Elias. And interesting developments occurred. AJ and Omos did retain, but yeah, Riker and Elias, there may be some dissension in the ranks. We then had Alexa's Playground with special guest Reginald, who was just in competition earlier in the night.
Who volunteers for being on this now?
Yeah, I think Alexa just said, "I want Reginald on the show," and then basically what happened was, in fact, we'll talk about it when we get to the O'Shites. And then the main event of the evening was the rematch from the previous week, which was a no contest. It was the number one contender match, Drew McIntyre taking on Kofi Kingston in what was a fucking awesome match, and Drew McIntyre did pick up the win. Interested to get your thoughts on that as well when we talk through it, but that was the card. Highlights. Firstly, I didn't mention him in the card, but obviously they sacked, what was his name? Adnan Vic, something like that. The guy who was the main commentator for Raw, he's gone.
Yeah.
So they've now brought in Jimmy Smith, and he is former Bellator. He might actually still be with Bellator, I'm not sure. But he was fucking good, Really solid announcer.
He knows what he's doing in this area. All right, wrestling not necessarily, but he knows how to announce shit.
I mean, it was night and day, to be fair. It didn't feel like someone who was just had no idea about the business and was just saying what people, because
I've actually heard a lot of arguments recently that like they should be getting people who know wrestling in to do these sort of things. Not necessarily in the Jimmy Smith capacity, but like there's a lot of people involved now who they know sports maybe, but they don't know wrestling.
Yeah.
But I think it really depends. Sometimes it works and sometimes it really doesn't. But I would agree with you that this is one case where I think he did a stellar job, in all fairness.
Well, that's it. I think
against the other fella.
Even with Vic, he like his first couple of weeks. I mean, he was only there a couple of weeks, but basically you could tell he was, he was stumbling through it. Like in terms of the names of the wrestlers and the moves and the storylines and stuff, it just didn't feel like the best fit. I remember when they had that guy in from, can't remember what show he was on, but he called Jeff Hardy Jeff Harvey. Do you remember that a couple of years ago? Mm-hmm. He just had no idea who the fuck he was because he wasn't a fan. So
that's why they didn't let him anywhere near SmackDown because he just struggled with Shinsuke.
Well, exactly. But yeah, so Jimmy Smith, big fan. Obviously, he's only been there 1 week, so let's see how he goes. But yeah, great change in my opinion. Next, I was firstly. I'm a fan of The Miz, right? I know a lot of people hate him. That just means he's doing his job well. I like him. He's arrogant. He's cocky. He's a bastard. He's the only two-time, what the fuck do you call it? What's it called when you get all the belts? I can't remember. Grand Slam. Yeah, only two-time Grand Slam champ.
Forgets wrestling. That's what this segment is.
Yeah. So yeah, big fan of The Miz.
Down for the pin. That's the word. Pin.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, the thumbtack. What? So yeah, Miz is back. Big fan of that. Also Johnny Drip Drip. So made me laugh. To be fair, so he's just sat there wearing a garlic necklace, and it's just like I hated the zombie thing. Don't get me wrong, but that was just funny to me. It's just the fact that he just had it on. Funny. It was funny. Fuck you.
What's
it was
garlic
funny.
got to do with zombies?
Well, exactly. That's why it's funny because.
No, it's not funny. You should know what the fuck he's doing. They weren't vampires. They were zombies.
That's why it's funny.
Stupid segments. I'm only messing. Yes.
Yeah.
To be honest, when they're not bad at the old comic stuff. I think they're just kind of overdone at this point. Like I think what is really frustrating with him is we know John Morrison is a really good wrestler, and we do not get to see that. And it
is such a shame. When he came back, I was really excited, thinking he's actually potentially going to get like a main title push kind of thing. But yeah, we didn't see it. But these two are obviously really good mates, and they can be entertaining when they're not doing just absolute shit. And this one was
let's just do fat jokes about Otis if you're alright with that, guys.
Exactly. And I don't get me wrong, Miz TV sucked, but like these two, I don't know, I got a couple of laughs out of them, and I'm glad Miz is back. Obviously, we thought he was going to be out injured for quite a while, so for him to return so quickly is good.
Who'd have thought the zombie attack wouldn't actually be that bad?
Exactly. So Orton and Riddle, I'm still enjoying them too. I feel like Riddle was floundering quite a bit.
He was definitely directionless on the main roster, in all fairness.
Yeah, but then I think I've said this before. He's effectively got the gimmick of that annoying kid from Home Alone who is like, when you guys back? Yeah, how many? What's this like in France? He just fucking doesn't shut the fuck up and pairing him up with someone.
When he just totally forgets what he was saying and scooters away. That's actually. I know that I'm confident that weren't intentional, but like that should be part of him now because that was funny.
Yeah. But like pairing him up with Randy, who's just got to be like completely straight laced all the way through these things and stuff. I don't know. It's a good kind of odd couple pairing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I am a big fan of it. Something else I was a big fan of. So Elias has finally walked out on Jackson Riker, it seems, and I'm a massive fan of Elias as well. I think he's got. I'm surprised he isn't more like featured in like.
He's old news now. We got Rick Boogs. Fuck that.
But like, he's everything Vince McMahon would love, surely. So I don't get why he's in the position he's been in with obviously Jackson Riker and stuff. But this gives me hope that we might just get a brief Elias and Jackson Riker thing, and then maybe Elias might move on to something decent for once, because I do believe he could be. Good.
I don't want to be like this. I don't wish anyone lose their job when I say this, so apologies, because I'm not saying I wish it on him, but I am surprised Riker is still here.
Yeah,
I don't wish him to not be with the WWE anymore. I don't wish him to lose his job. I'm just given who they've released recently, I'm quite surprised that Riker's one of the people who made the cut.
Yeah, well, it is mad that of the three of them, what were they called? The Forgotten Sons.
Forgotten now.
Yeah, well, it's mad that of the three of them, the one who kind of got them taken off TV was Jackson Riker, and he's the only one left.
Yeah, but I just think is when you look at it, and I get that like Riker's probably not got a big enough deal to be a worthwhile option for saving money. But when you look at like they've got rid of Braun and kept Jackson Riker, in what world does that feel like it makes sense? I'm not even a huge fan of Braun. It just baffles you. Like this, you truly never know what's going to happen with WWE and their releases. You really don't.
No, it's definitely an interesting one. But yeah, hopefully Elias will benefit from this split. Probably not, but it gives me a glimmer of hope. And my final highlight, Anthony, was the main event. It just goes to show that Kofi Kingston is still the main event's caliber talent. It was a great match.
Only negative element I want to make of this, because I do agree it was a really good main event. I think these two had really good chemistry and worked really well together. I think the only downside I have to this whole thing was the fact that did anyone honestly feel like Kofi stood a chance?
No, and do you know what? I've seen a lot of backlash of, we're getting Bobby versus Drew again, and do you know what? Some of it is warranted. Like, it does feel very stale. The problem we've got is there's no genuine main eventers on that fucking show.
And you'd have still had a problem if you'd have walked away with Kofi taking the win. Everyone would have been like, "Oh yeah, that's realistic," and they're screwing Drew over, and so on and so on. Because there's plenty of people who wouldn't have wanted Kofi to take the win over Drew, so you wouldn't have won them. Like no matter what decision, people would have been unhappy. So like the only thing for me is just that it was so obvious that Kofi was never going to be an actual threat.
Yeah, this is what they need to really be careful of. Is I feel like they're turning Drew into Roman Reigns of old, where they're trying so hard to the point where fans are starting to resent him. But he's not doing anything wrong. It's just that he's always in the main event, and people are just like, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I do worry the fans are going to turn on Drew more than they already have done.
Yeah, I agree, and it's difficult because, like you say, they're struggling now for who do you put in the main event scene. But I think the best thing they could have done is have Drew walk away from it for a while.
Yeah, but it's like, where do you put him? Do you know what I mean? And I said that we haven't really got any main eventers on Raw. Braun Strowman was probably the closest one that we had, and they just sacked him. So
I'm actually, the more I think about it, the more I think we need a superstar shake-up and fast.
Yeah, we need something.
Especially with all the releases we've had, we need some shit to change. And that might be coming, because I've got some stuff to say about SmackDown.
Okay.
That might make you think that could be coming. But we really need to mix it up a bit.
I just want to throw this out there, and this is probably a segment for a different day, but I think we need to just get rid of the separate brands.
I'd love that. I would love that.
Just my thought.
I'd get rid of the separate fucking belts as well.
When wrestling...
Unify everything.
When wrestling was at its peak, there wasn't a brand split. So that's all I'm saying. And everybody who was on that fucking show,
downhill since.
Like your middle card was stacked, your lower card was stacked. It all made sense. It was watchable. It was enjoyable. Now you've got one or two big guys. The rest of the stuff is filler, and you've got the most talent you've ever had. So yeah, work that out.
I think there's a weird argument, isn't it? That it's like it would suffer. The show would suffer if they brought it all back together, because certain people wouldn't get any airtime and so on and so on. It's like plenty of people are not getting airtime now, honestly. And this might not be a popular opinion, but you are much better having one like one roster, and then maybe having something similar to AEW's Dark. Sorry guys, because I know people fucking hate Dark all the time, no matter what. But having something for AEW's Dark for talent who don't get seen as much. Do you have it actually? Why am I even rambling? You've got main events.
Well, yeah. I mean, no one sees that, but
make that more of a thing for the people who are going to get sort of ousted by bringing the brands back together.
Well, yeah, they used to have Sunday Night Heat back in the day.
I used to watch Sunday Night Heat. What the fuck happened to the side shows?
I don't know. No idea. But anyway, topic for another day. But they were the highlights. In terms of O'Shites this week, so give me your thoughts on Baszler and Reginald, because I wasn't a fan of it.
My thoughts aren't actually related to the match. I think the match was shit, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll close it out there. I don't think it was much of a match. I think what I was surprised at was a lot of people on social media got kind of uppity that Reginald took the win. And I'm like, look, if we're going to start having more intergender matches, we can't have the constant result be woman beat man. Like, I don't want to be like starting something here. But if we're looking at true equality, then sometimes you've got to not know what the result is. And if every time Reginald gets in the ring with a woman, he's going to lose because, woman power, then it's going to be a bit predictable and shit anyway, isn't it?
The problem for me is it's Reginald.
I know, but I was surprised and almost quite pleased that they were gutsy enough to have him take the win. It let me believe that they're not frightened of doing that. And intergender matches might be something that would be interesting. But it also led me to believe that maybe they're going to do something where she actually gets some sort of rematch or gets to come up and on him. That being said, it was not a good quality match. They did not really do very well together. So,
well, she got to come up and Anthony in the same fucking show because on Alexa's Playground, she invited Reginald on as he sat there on the swing. Why are we giving this guy so much fucking screen time? But anyway, as he sat there,
who the fuck is he anyway?
I don't know. He's fucking shit.
Turned up out of nowhere.
But anyway, like Shayna Baszler comes and attacks him and knocks him off the swing and beats the shit out of him, and then sits on the swing and goes.
He's still got a W.
But then she sits on the swing and basically says that she doesn't like Lily, and basically Alexa's like, well, Lily doesn't like you, and so she calls Lily just a stupid doll, and then walks off, and it's like. Oh, God. So, yeah. It looks like we're getting Alexa and Shayna, basically.
It's like, next week we're going to get Shayna Baszler has been released by WWE. They wish her well in her future endeavours. And we're going to realise that Lily's been releasing people the whole time. She controls the WWE more than anyone knows.
That would be hilarious, to be fair. But yeah, so was not a fan of any of the Baszler stuff or the Reginald stuff.
It was like a sidebar just to lead into that feud then, for some reason.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But it just didn't need to take up that much of my TV time. I also hate the whole thing with Nia Jax and stuff, and it seems like they're going to split up now as well, which I'm cool with, but I just,
Who's left?
Didn't care for
Who's left in the tag division, for fuck's sake?
Yeah, no one.
So decimated the women's tag scene. We might as well just sack the women's tag belts off on the main roster and just purely rely on the NXT ones, because NXT actually has a decent, or much better, I wouldn't say decent because there's still not enough teams, but a better women's tag scene than WWE itself, which is crazy.
Yeah. And my only other shite for this week, surprisingly, was just Mason T-Bar.
Mason T-Bar.
I'd like to give them a chance, but
they don't wear masks anymore.
Yeah, they're not. But they still look fucking stupid. And they still got stupid names, and yeah, they need to just be like, well, no, I'm actually Dio Madden or whatever.
I don't get why. Like, why are we keeping with the fake names now? We can clearly see that you are Dio Madden and the other guy.
I have no idea. But yeah,
I want to say for the record, for anyone who wants to be snarky, I know it was Dominic Djokovic. I was just being a dick.
But yeah, so they were my main shite, really. All in all, it was a much better show this week than last week, which wasn't fucking hard, to be fair. But yeah, it was okay. It really was. Like, even the stuff which there was a lot of stuff which was just very meh, but not bad enough to be an shite. And there was actually quite a couple of decent highlights in there. So for me, it gets a 2.
Okay.
I still think
I'm not criticizing your scoring when I say this. I don't think I can give it a 2. I think it's almost the relief of it not being as bad as it has been that's making you be almost generous with your score. And I'm not saying that that's what's happened, Carl. But for me,
it's okay.
I'm thinking a 1.5 is more fair, because I don't think it was that much better. I think it just feels so much better because it's been shit for so long.
Well, I'm thinking you can go and fuck yourself now.
Well, I'm thinking cool. You can...
No, that's cool. Yeah. Okay, I'll take that.
Good. So, Carl, let's talk about NXT very briefly, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay. So as far as the card goes, we start the night. We have a match between Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, and Pete Dunne, which is a number 1 contender match for the NXT title. This match leads to a no contest. Now, I'll explain some things about that afterwards, but at least we're no contest due to an interruption from, let's say, I don't want to name any names. Let's just call him A. Cole. Don't want to be too obvious, but then we have a match between LA Knight and Jake Atlas, which leads to Jake Atlas taking the win, involving shenanigans again, because we can't have any straight matches this week. We then had a promo from Karrion Kross, which, yeah, we'll mention that as well. We had a match between Kushida and Carmelo Hayes for the Cruiserweight title, with Kushida taking the win. We then saw Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell going up against Zoe Stark and Zayda and Mia for the women's tag titles, with LeRae and Hartwell taking the win. And we then closed the night out, Carl, with MSK going up against Legado del Fantasma, with MSK taking the win.
Okay.
That's the card. Right. So, as far as highlights go, Carl, really good main events. Like MSK, I haven't seen a great deal of them as the tag champs. And they seem, the young up-and-comers, they seem really talented, but it's nice to see them in action and see them have a really good match. Mm-hmm. On some level, I kind of wanted to see Legado del Fantasma actually take the win, but it would, take the titles, I suppose, but not necessarily here. I think there's some mileage in this, and I think seeing them in a rematch at maybe a takeover and Legado del Fantasma taking the win and legitimizing that faction a bit more, I think is really good. And obviously this match involves some back and forth, and it involved Bronson Reed, etc., because of obviously the feud he's got going with Santos Escobar. But ultimately the match itself was really quite good, and I would love to see this kind of uninterrupted without shenanigans. Not that it got it, we got a legitimate finish, but one of the issues I had with it, and I'll mention it when we get to the O'Shites, or I might as well mention it now, was that it kind of, the weakest part of this match was the fact that MSK relied on the distraction from Reed to take the win. And it's like, that was like, they can legitimately win, do you know what I mean? I'd love to see a rematch just to sort of rectify or vindicate that in some way, but I think that's kind of some of the plan, so I don't want it to be too much of an O'Shite, because I did really enjoy the match and I think it's got some mileage in it for a rematch.
Yeah, okay. I quite like that, to be fair. I'm a big fan of MSK, and I think Legado del Fantasma are also a good little stable as well. I think you're right, it would be good to give them a little bit more legitimacy, and kind of, I don't know, because they came in quite well, didn't they? And they kind of died off a little bit, so it'd be good to kind of recognise them again, if you will. But I thought it was a good match.
I'm a slightly bit torn with Legado del Fantasma, because there was a point when I was thinking it could be cool to see them get the tag titles and him keep the Cruiserweight belt. Now, Escobar's lost the Cruiserweight belt, so he's going for the North American title, and it's like, part of me kind of still wants to see a scenario where the stable's got all the gold and they're looking shit hot, but I'm a big fan of Bronson Reed, so I don't want to see Bronson Reed lose the North American title so quick. So I don't know how I feel about it now. But there's definitely some mileage in them as a stable, more so than I thought when they came in all honesty. I think there's definitely something.
Yeah.
My next highlight, Carl. Just generally, just to say, Kushida again. Speaking of the Cruiserweight title, this is exactly what it needed to be. Young up-and-coming talent. Essentially, just Kushida proving his dominance, but he is totally legitimizing the Cruiserweight scene. And on top of that, he's giving people from the Cruiserweight scene some time on NXT, which is awesome, because let's face it, 205 is not really the place to make your career.
No,
because how much does anyone really care about 205?
Yeah.
So when the Cruiserweight title and people from 205 Live get to see some time on NXT, it's an absolute win. But on top of that, Kushida, since he come back and since he won the title, is just looking fucking awesome. So I need to give a shout out to the Cruiserweight title bout as well.
Yeah.
You ready for most shites?
Oh, yes.
You ready for them most shites, Carl?
Mm-hmm.
So, the $1 million shite, right? we had a match, LA Knight and Jake Atlas, and as you would expect, this involved the $1 Million Man, it involved Cameron Grimes, it involved all sorts of shite. They're basically leading this to one of them, like, I'm not even sure, and maybe that's potentially a good thing, but what are you actually winning? But we have LA Knight and Cameron Grimes essentially fighting for the $1 Million Man's legacy. I don't really know. He's not actually going to give them money, so is he just going to let them be the $1 Million Knight or whatever?
Is it going to be for the $1 million title, the $1 million belt?
There's rumours that that's coming back, but it's like, what do you actually win at the end of that? Because it's not a legit title. So you're not actually a champion of anything. You're not going to win the money. You're not going to become the $1 Million Man, or like the modern day $1 Million Man. It's one of these things where I think once they're finished and once it's done, it's just going to die a death. It's just going to fall into obscurity, because they're not going to be able to take over what the $1 Million Man was. So it's just never going to work. So I think a large part of it is that for me, that there's no real direction to this other than Cameron Grimes and LA Knight having a feud. That being said, this match made me wonder: is Jake Atlas going to be a bit of a dark horse here and going to be involved? He managed to sneak the win on LA Knight, and is this one of these things where they might be giving him a push and we just didn't see it? I don't know. Do you know?
I don't know.
Who knows? Okay, I think you might enjoy this next one, Carl, because I've never said it before, but I need to say it this week. NXT are ruining Karrion Kross. And I say it this week. Do you know why I say it this week, Carl?
Go on.
Because Karrion Kross, like when you think about when he first come into NXT, he was this mysterious, TikTok, he's going to get you and all this. There was not a lot of words said. Scarlett would do his talking for him. She'd occasionally come out. She'd put the egg timer on there, or whatever. Not an egg timer. What do you call it? Hourglass.
That's lovely.
That would be anyway, she would come out and she'd put the hourglass down, and you'd be like, "Oh shit, it's going to kick off!" And there was so much mystery shrouded around him. He was an absolute beast when he was in the ring, and it was awesome. And now what you get is Karrion Kross comes out because Adam Cole said stuff about him, and he comes out to go, and you're like, why are you being a moaning bitch? Like, this isn't your character. There's no mystery around you. You're just a whiny, entitled prick right now. Mm-hmm. And again, we're talking about the character, because Karrion Kross, Killer Kross was fucking awesome. What he came into starting out was fucking brilliant. But the morphing him into just basically every other main event wrestler on NXT. And NXT, let's be honest, has lacked story. I've always moaned about that element of it. There's some really fucking good matches on there, but the storytelling is not as good. Never has been. And this is further proof that like we had a character with almost an air of mystery around him, not as unrealistic as The Undertaker, but almost that air of like intimidation and mystery around him that The Undertaker had. And you ruin it because now he just comes out whining about how Adam Cole said nasty things about him or whatever the fuck he was moaning about. I can't even remember. And it's like, why was Karrion Kross even talking? Don't do any of this. Ultimately, the promo was there to go, I'll fight them all. Because he wants to look like a tough guy. I'll fight them all, which is a stupid move when you're a champion. Anyway, I don't care how tough you think you are. You've got Gargano, Adam Cole, Pete Dunne, and for some reason Kyle O'Reilly, who's rated up there, all wanting a shot at you. And you're like, I'll fight them all because we're trying to lead to some sort of takeover match that involves 100 people. Right? But at the end of the day, these are people who are at the top of NXT. And you're trying to keep your title, so it just feels like a stupid decision anyway. Like, I get it, he's a tough guy, but,
That's why you should let Scarlett do your talking for you, huh?
The whole promo it's starting to ruin Karrion Kross for me, and I think they're just going to keep up with this shit. And he's just going to essentially be another one of them, where he's coming out going, I should be the champ. Exactly like Finn Balor, exactly like Adam Cole, exactly like Kyle O'Reilly. The only person I want to see with the fucking belt right now, the only person I want to see in this fucking match right now is Pete Dunne.
Mm-hmm. At least he's in the mix, but I'm not
overrated at this point.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic for Pete Dunne, to be fair. God, I hope it's not O'Reilly.
And oddly enough, I've actually ran through all my O'Shites by accident there. So I mentioned MSK earlier. Last O'Shite was Gargano and Cole being anywhere near the fucking title right now. So I'm moaning a little bit more on that. And that's just the fact that Cole come off the longest fucking run as an NXT champion ever, right? Being the record breaker, I think taking that from Finn Balor, right? Then we have Finn Balor going for the title and not getting it. Oh, holding the title, losing it, go for rematch, not getting it. And then we go right back to, well, maybe Adam Cole. It's like, how many people have you got to go for this fucking belt? Yeah. I don't want to see Adam Cole or Gargano anywhere near the main title just yet. I would sooner see Kyle O'Reilly in that contention over them two. Again, deal scenario, Pete Dunne. Let's give Pete Dunne a push. Why not? And I'm not saying that because I'm British. I'm saying that because he's fucking good. So that's me, O'Shea, Carl. This week pissed me off in so many ways that it's a 1.5 as well. There were some good matches, but again, just all around, it's like it just wasn't structured as well. This just lazy sort of push to like, well, we've got a takeover coming up, so obviously we're going to build to some multi-man main title match, and we're going to build to this $1 million match, and it's like, just maybe make it really obvious then. Don't actually naturally build stories. Let's just push faster because it's gotten closer. You dicks. 1.5.
I will agree with you. I don't think it was as good as Raw, which, so, 1.5 for me. It was just a bit bland again, wasn't it? And I don't know. I don't get what He's just a fucking idiot carrying Cross, and I'll fight everybody, and then we have this 6 fucking man one thing or whatever. Just silly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually know what they're going to book it into, but there's that many. Like, what have they not got a plan, or are they literally? I hate when it leads to this whole thing as well of like, what they want to do is they want I could be wrong here, so I'm going to eat humble pie after takeover, but they want Karrion Kross to lose the belt, but they don't want Karrion Kross to take the pin, so let's involve other people, and it's just that kind of bullshit.
I think, are they not booking something for in your house or whatever it's called? It's like a 6-man thing. I'm not sure.
I don't even know.
Yeah, 1.5. So next on the list, Friday Night Dynamite again. Quite annoyed that it's on a Friday, to be fair, and not the best show, unfortunately. To be fair, though,
doesn't it go well with that song? Who done that song? Dynamite. That rapper guy. Was it Jason Derulo?
Well. Yeah.
But it kind of goes well. We should just use that song now, is all I'm saying.
Okay. But yeah, so it was a little bit of a poor show this week, unfortunately. So in terms of the card, we kicked off with Young Bucks taking on Pac and Penta, with Young Bucks picking up the win in what was a pretty awesome opener. We had Mark Henry speaking and being interrupted by Vicky Guerrero.
So Mark Henry speaks. Wow.
Yeah, pretty much we get a lot of that, unfortunately, this week.
Do that.
But he is interrupted by Vicky Guerrero, who unveils her newest acquisition, actually being Andrade. So that was quite a big shock.
Andrade, though.
We had Cody teaming up with Shoddy Lee Johnson to take on QT Marshall and Anthony Ogogo, with QT and Anthony Ogogo picking up the win this time. Could have given someone fucking double or nothing, could you? But anyway, we then had the Inner Circle victory lap. Wasn't really a victory lap; it was just a promo, but they like to call things. We had Christian Cage. Yeah, Inner Circle speaks. We had Christian Cage teaming up with Jungle Boy to take on Private Party, with Cage and Jungle Boy picking up the win. We had Sting and Darby Allin speaks, and they get interrupted by Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. Then we have Britt Baker's Championship celebration, which is basically just Britt Baker speaks, and that gets interrupted by Nyla Rose. We had Red Velvet against the Bunny, with Red Velvet picking up the win.
I've seen the Bunny in a while.
Yeah, it was nice to see it, to be fair. But yeah, Red Velvet picked up the win. And then the main event of the evening saw Dustin Rhodes take on Nick Comoroto from the factory, and Dustin Rhodes picked up the win. It was a bull rope match, which, yeah, okay. So that was the card. It wasn't a great episode, to be fair, but I will talk through some highlights. So firstly, the opening match, as I said, fantastic as always. I don't think you're ever in doubt, when you've got the Young Bucks. They're so good in the ring, and obviously Pac and Penta, again, two other guys who are just fantastic. So it was always going to be a banger. Obviously, after off the back of this, there was more beatdowns and stuff taking place at the hands of the Elite, or whatever they want to call themselves. And Eddie Kingston comes out to make the save, which is interesting because there's already previous baggage there between Kingston and Pac and Penta and Death Triangle and stuff. So yeah, they later went on to cut a promo where he basically said, my enemies' enemies are my friends. So yeah, yeah, it's quite good. I think obviously Moxley's going to go on paternity leave, isn't he? So it gives Eddie Kingston something to do over the coming weeks. Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it. Next, Andrade is All Elite, Anthony, and I think that's a huge acquisition for them. We've spoken before about AEW signing, washed up ex-WWE legends, etc. But Andrade's probably in, the peak of his career. I mean, it doesn't quite give you, John Moxley vibes, but, he's definitely not past it. He's definitely got a lot to give and do. And yeah, I think it's a massive acquisition. He comes out and says that he's going to be the face of All Elite Wrestling.
I totally agree. I think he's a hell of an acquisition. Even if you don't rate him much now because of his run in WWE, he's definitely a talented guy, and I think more talented than he probably got to display, in all fairness. So I'm definitely excited for his potential. I didn't mention it in the news, but one bit that worried me was this whole stuff we've had come out about the contract negotiation, because obviously Andrade wasn't under the 90-day clause. He could have wrestled for anyone pretty much from his contract expiring, and he didn't. And a lot of people are like, well, what was the point? Because I think he was 5 days shy of his 90 days anyway when he turned up on AEW. So it's like you might as well have been under a non-compete. But apparently a lot of the reason was when he was first released, he's been in talks with AEW since then. And the debate they were having and some of the issues they were having was Andrade wanted full control over the results of his matches. He wanted to be able to veto any decision. And say, I'm not taking a loss to them in an almost Hogan-like fashion and going, no, I'm not losing to them. And essentially, it was a sticking point. Tony Khan and AEW weren't willing to give him full control like that. And they've managed to reach a compromise, is all we've heard. We don't know the details of it. So he has some level of creative control over what his character does and over matches in some capacity, but we don't know what compromise it is they've reached. So a lot of people are worried that he's going to have almost too much arrogant freedom to go, I'm not losing to that guy.
Well, you see, the thing that makes me question that is if you had, full creative control, and this isn't a slight on Vicky, but would you put yourself with Vicky Guerrero? I wouldn't. He doesn't need it. So
in some ways, though, I know, I get what you're saying, but she is a bigger name than Andrade at this point, and the Guerrero name carries a lot of weight. So I kind of get it, but I get where you're coming from. In the sense of would he have necessarily chose that? Maybe not.
I just think it's a bad pairing. I just don't think he needs it. Obviously, it doesn't make sense because if you look at Vicky Guerrero's
out with a manager, we'd have all wanted Zelina Vega to rock up as well.
Well, yes, but I don't know. If you look at Vicky, she's got Nyla Rose, and now she's got Andrade. It's seems odd.
She's like the MVP of AEW, isn't
she? So yeah, I don't know, but. Yeah, big acquisition for them anyway.
Some of the I don't know how you feel about this whole vetoing element though. Whether he veto decisions on a match, and I can kind of get why you might have been vying for that decision because obviously, I think if we're honest, some of the stuff that he probably feels he got screwed over in WWE was having to take losses to people who he shouldn't have been taking losses to, and having no way of pushing himself in that way. So I can kind of get why he wants to protect himself and his character, but I just hope that the agreement's been reached is going to be a good one, and we get to see some great... Because, let's face it, him and Miro could actually have a really good program together if they're going to put him in the TNT title scene, for instance. Yeah,
I mean, there's loads of opportunity there for him. I would be surprised if they'd ever agree to anything like that, especially the way it's run.
It's more because they've sort of been quite vague and gone, we've agreed to a compromise, but you don't know where that compromise is. We'll listen to whatever you're saying, but we'll get the ultimate say. That could have been the compromise. You just don't fucking know.
Yeah, no, it's true. Interesting one. I didn't know about that. Next highlight I've got for you. So, again, I was a bit on the fence, and I feel like I am on the fence when it comes to the Inner Circle these days in terms of whether I really enjoyed it or not. They're not shit, but they're not what they were.
That's it.
But, yeah, I don't know. It's getting a highlight for me. I think I wasn't so sure whether I wanted to see any more Inner Circle versus Pinnacle stuff, to be honest. I would have liked the Stadium Stampede to be the end of it. But what seems to be happening, and if this is the route they go, then I'm cool with it, is it seems like they're going to branch out into still kind of faction versus faction, but just the individual feuds within it. So, Hager announced that in 2 weeks' time it's going to be Hager versus Wardlow in a cage match. I want to see that. So I'm happy about that. FTR versus Santana and Ortiz.
Yep, count me in.
I want to see that. MJF and Jericho. I've seen it before, but yeah, cool. Guevara and Spears. Yeah, probably not. But that's only a slight on Spears, not Guevara. But
that being said, though, Guevara and Spears could surprise us.
Yeah.
I'm hyped for it. No, but could it accidentally be a good match? Yeah, probably.
So it's one of them. I think. If they go this route and it is, them still feuding with each other, but not as faction versus faction, then I'd be okay with it, to be fair. But yeah, so all remains to be seen. But decent promos from a lot of them, and hopefully it does go that way. And lastly, again, this was not a main event worthy match, right? It just wasn't. But it's still a highlight. The Bull Rope match, I thought was really good. Nick Comorodo, I don't know how much experience he's got, but he's pretty new, and I thought he did really, really good. It was a physical match, and Dustin did a good job as well. So it does get a highlight for me, but yeah, it was I don't know. That's the main event of the show. Yeah, not too
sounds
sure.
Like a highlight hidden in an O'Shite right there.
Yeah, which leads nicely into the O'Shites. So I've already mentioned this, so I won't say it too much again. But I wasn't a fan of the way Andrade was debuted at all, really. So it's boss that they've got him, but the whole thing was just flat as fuck, man. So
it was there was the shock value wasn't really there. Let's be honest.
No, like Vicky comes out and she's like, everyone's just booing her because they hate her so much, and she's so high pitched and squeaky, and she's like, and no one can understand what the fuck she's saying, and everyone's still booing her. There's no entrance music or nothing. Then we just get a 30-second delay, and then all of a sudden he walks out. People go, "Oh shit, it's Andrade." So it's just like, it was just, I wasn't a fan.
I think if you're gonna, I honestly think the introduction for him, even if it meant holding off for a couple more weeks, should have been like, I know people have moaned about shenanigans enough, so apologies, but interrupting some sort of match and making his claim known that he wants to, like, if he'd have rocked up, even not interrupted a match, but rocked up at the end of a Miro match, and I don't want to keep plugging that like it should be a thing, and making it clear that that's what he wants, that would have been the shock value there. Like, he's rocked up and he's attacked someone.
Yeah, it was bizarre, really, especially to choose to do it on a random episode of Dynamite that's being fucking moved to a Friday when it's going to get a much lower, viewership.
Yeah,
we saw last week it had 500,000 views.
Well, it's not like they were doing it to try and build the viewers, because they didn't hype up the fact he was going to be there. So
exactly,
how would you have known unless you were already watching it?
Yeah, I just think the whole thing was strange. It's a strange choice to put him with Vicky. It's a strange choice to debut him the way they did, and the actual debut itself felt flat. But at the end of the day, they've got him, so that's all that matters really. So let's see what they do from here. Now I mentioned this as well that annoyed me, but right now, we let fucking Ogogo knock out Cody. Not during the fucking match when they had the opportunity to make Ogogo decent.
Fucking livid that Cody won that.
So one thing for me that I didn't actually realise, but does make a lot of sense, Ogogo has only had 5 professional matches. So, yeah, apparently he came out.
He's come from a solid base of being a boxer, though.
Well, yeah, but in terms of pro wrestling, he's only ever had 5 matches, and so I guess he even said he hasn't even got a proper contract. He's on like he's like their only development talent, basically, is what he said.
Developmental. That's so weird.
So it is kind of like, okay, maybe we have just got on the hype train a little bit too much with him, but he definitely has the tools.
I don't even think this is an us thing. Like, they sold this like Cody was going to get his comeuppance for being such an arrogant, like, kind of heel face kind of guy. Like, he thinks he's like a good guy, but he's actually just full of himself. They were booking it that way. It just felt so weird that he didn't get the win, unless they're still going somewhere with it.
He's such a strange character, Cody. It's mad. Like he could be so good, and yeah, he finds ways to just make you just really annoyed by everything that he does, which is a shame. But yeah, so
look, I'm sitting there drinking that drink, the son of a bitch.
But yeah, so yeah, quite annoyed. Obviously, I think Ogogo maybe should have got the winner Double or Nothing instead. But whatever. Then unfortunately, Britt. So I'm a huge fan of Britt Baker. I think everybody knows this. I think this was the promo that broke the camel's back for this show. We just had too many segments of so-and-so comes out and speaks. So like Mark Henry comes out and does it. Sting and Darby come out and do it. Fucking Inner Circle have come out and done it. And then Britt Baker's just there at the end. And unfortunately, hers was the one that just felt the most kind of flat and suffered the most, because it was so similar to like part of what the Inner Circle had done and part of what Sting and Darby had done, that it was just a bit like, this again.
To be honest, I think this is one area that I need to give AEW shit for, right? Because it's something that WWE don't do, and I don't think there's no place for this. I just think that you don't overdo it. But AEW seems to like literally constantly go, well, let's do a victory celebration of some sort. Like the Inner Circle have had so many celebrations, it's unreal. Like, she won a championship, which is awesome, and she totally deserved it. But could she have just cracked on being the champion, or had like a decisive squash match to assert herself as the champion, instead of just going, well, let's celebrate? And it's like, and don't be wrong, WWE have done these things before, but it feels like anytime anything happens in AEW, they have to have a celebration the next week. And like, I get that you're trying to fill a show, but like, you don't need to celebrate like Cody gets a new entrance theme. Let's have a celebration for it. Like, it just calm down.
Yeah, I think there's that aspect to it, and there's also the fact that they just they have too many so and so speaks segments, and I know it's to try and like because stuff does happen and people do interrupt and things like that, but I don't know. I think a lot of the time it can just feel so really samey.
For a show that I think we've commended consistently for this storytelling, it just feels lazy though, doesn't it? To go, such a person speaks so that we know that there can be an interruption and set something up. It's like that's not the only way to set things up ever.
Well, that's it. It's just a little bit too formulaic, I think, at times.
Yeah. It's like having an opening promo at the beginning of every week of your show with the main title holder. Like, who would do that?
I know, right? And then my final little shite. And I don't want to give them. I don't really want to give this a no shite, but it has to be, which is Red Velvet and Bunny. Velvet for me is mad. So firstly, she did her best fucking Lita impression and nearly killed herself on a fucking dive to the outside. Like literally, I thought she was dead at one point. So I was just like, oh my god, you need to be safer. But yeah, I don't know. And this isn't a slight on Bunny either. But to go from working a program with Jade Cargill and Shaq to then just randomly rocking up here with a fucking entourage of Big Swole and Kyle and King, and just having a match with Bunny on Dynamite.
Yeah, well, to be honest, just Bunny, not even anything to do with Bunny as a wrestler. She's very talented, and it was nice to see her again. But it was just how random it was, like you said.
Yeah, and it was like
Bunny appears. Just okay.
It was like the co-main event as well. You know, in it, like, and the main event was a fucking bull rope match with Dustin Rhodes and Nick Comoroto. So yeah, it felt almost like an episode of Dark at times. So yeah, not great.
Oddly placed, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? There was still some good stuff on there. I was toying between a 2 and a 2.5. I won't lie, but I do think it edges it slightly and gets a 2.5. It was slightly better than Raw on the whole, and I think even if that's just because it was only 2 hours and not 3, you know, it wasn't it really wasn't good this week. It was quite poor, really. Okay. So, well, yeah.
I'm going to give it a 2, and believe you me when I say this, that's the best rating I'm going to give all week.
Oh, I'm excited for this one. I'm going to.
I echo a lot of your sentiments.
Bring it on, Anthony. Lay the SmackDown.
Okay, so SmackDown, Carl. Let's talk about SmackDown, shall we? As far as the card goes, Carl, we open the night with Roman Reigns, because of course we fucking do, right?
Different, then, new.
We have a tag title match between the Mysterios and the Usos. Yeah?
Yeah.
With, I want to say Mysterio's taking the win.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. You'll get why I'm saying kind of. We'll explain. Then we had an interview with Seth Rollins, for some reason. Then we had a backstage segment with Chad Gable offering to manage the Street Profits for some reason. Then we had Liv Morgan going up against Carmella because she's not got a tag team partner anymore, so fuck it, with Carmella taking the win. We then saw Belair and Bayley having like a back and forth promo, setting up a match that they couldn't be bothered having any real story for, that kind of thing. Then we saw the Street Profits having a backstage segment with Otis, trying to get Otis to leave Chad Gable because now they're suddenly super invested in that. We then saw Corbin going up against Shinsuke Nakamura, and Corbin took the win, but never took the crown, I'm afraid. Still, that saga on goes. We had Kevin Owens going up against Apollo Crews for the IC title, with Apollo Crews retaining and taking the win. And we then had the same tag match from the beginning of the night again, but this time with a no contest. Carl. Yay. So, for those of you who haven't actually watched the SmackDown this week, and I would not blame you, the reason we had the same tag match twice, and the reason the second one ended in no contest, is because essentially, with the Mysterios going up against the Usos, Roman has now changed his mind. That's what the beginning promo was for. For some reason, we couldn't just have this match. This couldn't be the first thing that happens on SmackDown. We had to have Roman cutting a promo to introduce the bastard match, apparently, right? But Roman was essentially, he's changed his mind on the fact that he didn't want them to go for the belts. He wants them to win, and there'll be consequences, essentially, if they don't win. We get to the match. We have a match with an unrealistically skilled Dominic beating 2 veteran wrestlers, because, of course, why not? But, obviously, it wasn't a very clear victory because Jimmy or Jay or whoever was taking the pin, the shoulders were clearly still up, Carl, or they were up on one side or whatever. The referee didn't see what he should have seen, so it was debatable. So let's have another match at the end of the night after we argue that. Now, the reason I'm ranting about this before getting to the highlights is because my only highlight of the week was actually the main event. Not because of the match, because the match was very so-so and it ended in a no contest. It was the saving grace that was Roman Reigns. Because Roman Reigns come out essentially interrupted the match and caused it to go to a no contest. So no titles were changed hands. But he fucking dominated Dominic to the point that Jimmy had to leave because he just wasn't having it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He made a fucking big example. And you go, well, why is that such a good thing? Because it proves this further heel thing of like, this kid's green as fuck, and he managed to score a little bit of possibly a victory over the Usos, but he's still very green. And this is exactly what I liked about him rivaling with Seth, is the fact that they acknowledge that he's quite new to it all, right? And this was like skewed to massively uncomfortable and unfair of Roman to do what he did and lock him in the submission and refuse to let go. But this also built to what is likely going to happen, Carl, of Rey Mysterio going up against Roman, which we believe might actually even be at Hell in a Cell. Now, rather than just randomly pairing these two together, I fucking love the fact there's a story on that now. I love the motivation that Rey now has going into this match if it does come off that way. So, yes, 1,000 times yes, that was executed perfectly. And that's the way you do it. The beginning tag match was shit and stupid. But that last little bit saved it for me. And that is the only good thing I want to say about SmackDown this week. That bit there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shite. Let's talk about some shite, shall we, Carl? So we had an interview with Seth Rollins. Right, I can't remember what the interview was about because he very quickly decided, nope, not having it, because they asked him something he didn't like. I think it was something about Cesaro, because apparently that feud's still going, and he just decided not to do the interview. Totally waste of time. Let's have Seth on our screens with no real motivation. And what the fuck was that? Don't know. Stupid. Oh, shite. Anything involving Gable and the Prophets was a bit weird. Like, Chad Gable comes up essentially trying to, offer some advice to the Street Profits and maybe be their manager. And I think this is where I mentioned this before that we might have to talk about on SmackDown. I think this is because of a cheeky little tweet that you might have seen, Carl, very recently, with the Street Profits and MVP posing together in a picture. Mm-hmm. And this was on Twitter, and it led to a lot of speculation. It's like, is MVP adding them to the stable, as it were? Which leads me to go, well, maybe they're looking at potentially doing a superstar shake-up or some sort of trade that would see the Street Profits aligning with Bobby Lashley and joining Raw, or maybe the other way around, I don't know. But nevertheless, I feel like having the Gable, like, you need a manager kind of approach, and then to be refused was almost like a hint at this is where it's going to go, and they are going to have someone manage them, because let's face it, they're not really doing anything at the moment anyway. But the fact that they then went out of their way to try and get Otis to leave Gable was a bit like, why do you care so much? This led to Otis attacking them, but like, why do you even care whether him and Gable are a tag team? What was the motivation for that? Like, just crack on with your day. Like, I get that they're probably building towards, them, like, was it Alpha Academy versus Street Profits? But it's like such a kind of a weird way of doing it. Like, kind of take Otis to one side and be like, hey, he's a bit of a dickhead, You consider it's not like Chad Gable's been the bad guy who corrupted Otis. They've both been faces and are suddenly heels for no reason. You know what I mean? But whatever. So that was stupid. It's not really no shite, but I just need to say, poor Liv, man. Like, she's got, like, she's nowhere near the tag scene now. She's lost a tag partner, and we don't have a tag scene anymore by the two people who are champions. So now she has to go into a singles run again. Her first singles run just led to fucking nowhere, and now she's had to take a loss to Carmella because they couldn't even give her the win. Like, literally days after she lost a close friend and tag partner, they couldn't even give her a throwaway win that wouldn't have meant anything to Carmella, really, let's be honest. Like, they're not building Carmella anywhere, so what does it matter? Having a shit run at the minute. Like, let's take the L and probably not do anything for a while. It's fucking so savage what's happening there, really. And I'll say, the Riot Squad not being there anymore, they were the last actual tag team in the women's division on the main roster for me, and the fact that they're not there now is just fucking stupid. Stupid. Right, so honestly, like, this last one, you're still probably not going to agree with me on it. Well, sorry, not last one, I've got another one. You're probably not going to agree with me on this next one, Carl, but seriously, just give Corbin his stuff back, for fuck's sake. Why is this even a feud? All he wants is to get his crown back. He's winning the matches, and then this what's his name? Rick Boogs is like helping Shinsuke be a dick. And I'm not even sure, like, again, they're still not technically telling us that Shinsuke's the bad guy, but like, why have you took, like, Imagine doing this with anything else. Like, because it's a crown, everyone's like, ooh, King of the Ring stuff, but that's not how the King of the Ring works. Imagine doing this for a title, for an actual title. Imagine just, I don't know, attacking Apollo Crews, taking the IC title without permission, and then just going, well, you're not having it back. What are you going to do about it? Because that's basically what they're doing here. It's like, why not? Like, I know they're ultimately going to go to a match for the crown or whatever, which is just kind of stupid. But it's like, it just feels like a weird bullying angle, and I just don't get it. On top of that, and I don't know how you feel about this, is why have they booked it so that Shinsuke can't get a win or can't get the upper hand without Rick Boogs? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't Rick Boogs be the one struggling because he's the new guy and a bit green, and Shinsuke, the veteran, is the one who helps him secure the win? Why is Shinsuke now so shit that he can't secure a win over Corbin without assistance?
I just don't get this whole Rick Boogs thing at all, to be honest. It's just completely fucking stupid.
I don't get any part of this. It's really fucking weird.
Yeah.
So that needs to... It will be an shite for every week until they stop doing it. My last one, I swear, is KP. Is Kevin Owens versus Apollo again. Right? Okay. Because of course they had to do that, because now Aleister Black's gone, so he's no longer in the mix, right? And I don't know where they were going with it, because it was either going to be Aleister Black going up against KO again, or Aleister Black going up against Big E, or Aleister Black even going up against Apollo, but he was going to be involved in the IC title scene in some way when he interrupted that big multi-man match. Now Aleister Black's gone, there's no sign of Big E, and we've got Kevin Owens going up against Apollo, and you go, okay, I guess we're going back to that now, fine. Apollo takes the win. And then, no, sorry. Maybe we're going to have Kevin Owens going up against Sammy again. But again, like, I like them two together. They have really good chemistry. And I've even gone on record as saying, like, they could never have a bad match together, so it's always going to be enjoyable. On a technical level, that's probably still true. But what's going on with the IC title scene? Like, it's just the same. This is the trouble we're having all around, isn't it? We've got the same components. And there's only so many things you can do. That's why the women's tag scene isn't working. That's why the IC title scene's not working. Let's face it, that's why the US title scene's not really working, because it's the same fucking handful of people over and over again. Yep. And I don't know. I was so disheartened when it went back to like the usual system, like Kevin Owens and Sammy and Apollo in some capacity. And I'm still not too keen on Dabba Kato and his role in all this either. Fuck it.
Commander Aziz, you mean?
No, Dabba Kato. I refuse to call him that. So, that was SmackDown, Carl, for what it was. Probably one of the worst SmackDowns I've seen in a while. The only saving grace was the swerve, because honestly, I didn't expect it to be any good. But that little bit at the end when it saved the whole story with Roman, and potentially some good stuff going forward there, everything else was just shit. There's not a single match that was actually mattered, really, or worth watching. The segments backstage were all a bit naff. There was just nothing really enjoyable from this. So it gets a 1. It gets a 1 purely on the back of the Roman stuff is still progressing nicely in some way. Hell in a Cell is going to be a shit pay-per-view.
I'm not even keen to see Roman versus Ray, if I'm honest. And I'm still fuming about Liv. I'm fuming about most of the stuff, to be fair. So it gets a 1 from me. It was the worst show of the week.
I totally agree. And weirdly, apparently the ratings went up. And I'm like, why?
Bizarre.
It's baffling. Absolutely baffling. So, yeah, that was this week in We Hate Wrestling, because that's what it is now. Yeah. And I really need... what's going on, Carl?
I don't know. I think it's funny.
Guy. DDP changed me. I don't want to be a negative guy.
I think it's so funny that we had the glorious soundbite with all the intentions of the world, and we haven't used it fucking once, because wrestling has just been shit every week. Yeah, I don't know, honestly. It's mad for AEW to be poor as well. I don't know whether it's because they know that they're going to have it's less audience, so because they're being preempted to a Friday that they're not as bothered. But like at the same time, why would you debut Andrade and stuff like that? I honestly just don't know. But yeah it could do with a kick up the ass at the moment. And to be honest, I feel like it's always this way every year around about this time. Like we get so super pumped and hyped around Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season, and then pretty much nothing ends up happening after that, and we end up in these like really weird feuds for a bit. We might see something around SummerSlam do okay maybe, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it improves soon. But anyway, yeah, that was This Week in Wrestling. We're not really that doom and gloom. We love it. We love wrestling.
We don't want to be.
But no, thank you again to everybody for watching or listening to the show. It's been fun, as it always has been. We have taken you through the news, the rumours, the happy haps in the world of wrestling. We have discussed the 10 greatest finishing moves ever, whether you like it or not. And we have gone back through what was an interesting week in wrestling. Not one of the best, but it can only get better. So, with all that being said, make sure you follow us down here, right down there in one of them. Make sure you listen or watch up here on one of them. And yeah, them places. Not me face. But yeah, we have been A2theK. You have been a wonderful audience, and we will be back maybe this time next week. I mean, this is the first time we've done it on the right day.
I know, right?
Maybe. But yeah,
definitely next week, though.
Yeah, at some point next week. We're like the RKO. We will appear out of nowhere.
The RKO of podcasts.
That's it. That is it. So yeah, take it easy, one and all, and we will see you next week.
See you all next week.
You're watching or listening
to A2theK.
The A2theK.
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 These guys are awesome. Check it out.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.